Hey guys, tonight we're going to drift back more than 2,000 years, not to a grand battlefield or a glittering palace, but to the profoundly ordinary, dusty, and sometimes smelly world of a working stiff in Ptolemaic Egypt. We're going to follow you, a scribe, through one entire, underwhelming day. Feel the pre-dawn chill on your skin, see the single shaft of light cutting through the gloom of your mudbrick house, and smell well, let's just say the aromas are complex. This isn't a life of golden masks and divine power. It's a life of deadlines, annoying colleagues, and hoping the beer isn't watered down today. Frankly, given the state of ancient medicine, sanitation, and the sheer number of grumpy hippos, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know down in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always fascinating to see where these stories land. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're aware of is not light, but sound. A gentle, rhythmic scraping from the floor below. It's your mother, already awake, grinding the emmer wheat for the day's bread. It's a sound so familiar, so deeply embedded in the start of every day, that its absence would be more alarming than any nightmare. You lie still for a moment on your reed mat, which rests directly on the hard-packed earthen floor of the sleeping room. There's no mattress, no pillow except for a smooth, curved wooden headrest that looks impossibly uncomfortable to a modern eye, but it's all you've ever known. It keeps your head elevated from the floor, away from any scorpions or centipedes seeking warmth, which is a feature you can definitely appreciate. Your room, if you can call it that, is shared with your two younger siblings, whose soft breathing provides a gentle counterpoint to the grinding below. Privacy is a concept as foreign and luxurious as a solid gold chariot. The air is thick, warm, and carries the layered sense of your home. The dusty tang of the mud brick walls, the lingering aroma of last night's lentil stew, the faint but persistent smell of the family goat that occasionally wanders into the ground floor courtyard, and the ever-present, low-level scent of human life lived in close quarters. You swing your legs off the mat. The floor is cool beneath your bare feet. The house is a typical two-story affair, a tall, narrow rectangle of sun-dried bricks made from Nile mud and straw. The ground floor is for work, storage, and sometimes animals. The upper floor, where you are now, is for living and sleeping. A steep, narrow staircase with ridiculously high steps, more like a ladder, really, connects the two levels. You've navigated it in the dark thousands of times, yet you still place your hands on the rough walls for balance. As you descend, the sounds of the household grow. Your father is speaking in low tones to your mother in the main living area, which is really just a wider part of the ground floor. A single shaft of gray, pre-dawn light filters in from the high, small window, illuminating a universe of dancing dust motes. You pass the storage corner, where clay jars of water, beer, oil, and grains are neatly lined up. It's a surprisingly well-stocked larder, a testament to your steady, if not spectacular, income as a literate man. In a world where most people are subsistence farmers, your ability to read and write provides a buffer against the harshest edges of poverty. Now for the morning ritual. You pick up a small pottery bowl and a jug of water. You pour a little into the bowl, swish it around your mouth, and spit it out onto the ground near the doorway. Then you dip your fingers in and wipe the sleep from your eyes. That's it. That's the full extent of your morning wash-up on a typical workday. For a more thorough cleaning, you might go down to the canal later, but that's a public affair and takes time you don't have right now. You reach for a small pouch containing natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture harvested from dry lake beds. You take a pinch of the granular white powder and rub it vigorously against your teeth and gums. It's a salty, alkaline abrasive, the world's first toothpaste, and it does a reasonably good job of cleaning your mouth, even if it tastes like you're licking a rock. This is a small, daily luxury that separates the somewhat civilized from the truly rustic. A mainstream historical fact for you is that the same natron you're using for your dental hygiene was the critical ingredient in the mummification process, used to desiccate the bodies of the great pharaohs and nobles. It's a rather humbling thought to be cleaning your teeth with the same stuff used to preserve royalty for eternity. You, however, are just trying to ward off the agony of a toothache, a common and often deadly affliction. Next is the toilet. Tucked into a small alcove at the back of the ground floor is a wooden stool with a hole in it, positioned over a large ceramic pot half filled with sand. It's simple, effective, and requires someone, usually your youngest sibling, to empty it into the designated refuse pit down the lane later in the day. You take care of your business quickly. The whole setup is surprisingly odorless, a testament to the desiccating power of the sand. Historians still argue whether these indoor toilets were common in modest homes or if most people simply used an alley or a designated outdoor area. The archaeological evidence is ambiguous, but in your house, this little nook is a creature comfort you value, especially on a cold morning. Time to get dressed. Your wardrobe is simple. You pull on a clean linen kilt, a rectangle of off-white fabric that you wrap around your waist and secure with a simple knot. The linen is rougher than modern fabrics, but durable and breathable in the coming heat. In the cooler pre-dawn moments, you might drape another piece of linen over your shoulders, but you know you'll discard it within the hour. No shoes. You, like almost everyone you know, go barefoot inside and out, your soles toughened and calloused from a lifetime of walking on packed earth, sand, and stone. Before you can leave, your mother hands you a small, dense, flat loaf of barley bread, still warm from the clay oven in the courtyard. It's hearty and a little gritty, but it's fuel. You dip a corner of it into a small bowl of beer. Yes, beer for breakfast. It's a staple of the Egyptian diet, thick and nutritious, more like a thin porridge than the filtered, bubbly stuff of the future. It provides calories, hydration, and a mild, pleasant buzz to start the day. It's also generally safer to drink than the water from the local canal, which is a swirling soup of agricultural runoff, human waste, and who knows what else. Here's a quirky little tidbit for you. While you don't bother with it for your daily commute, many Egyptians of your class would apply kohl eyeliner each morning. It wasn't just for vanity. The dark pigment was believed to have magical healing properties and, more practically, it helped to reduce the blinding glare of the Egyptian sun, acting like ancient sunglasses. You've seen senior scribes and priests with their eyes meticulously lined, a sign of their status and their protection from the harsh light, both literally and metaphorically. For now, you just squint. You take one last look around the dim, familiar space. The routine is everything. The grinding stone, the water jug, the pot of sand, the warm bread. This is the anchor of your life, the predictable starting point from which you'll launch yourself into the far more unpredictable world outside. Your father nods at you, a silent acknowledgement and farewell. He's a stonemason, and his workday starts just as early, but his path diverges from yours. His work is of the hand, yours is of the mind, a difference that defines your place in the world. You give your mother a quick smile, grab your empty scribe's palette and a small bag, and step out of the doorway, leaving the relative peace of your mudbrick dwelling behind. The street is already coming to life, and your long walk to the temple scriptorium awaits. You step through the low doorway of your home, and the world transforms. The relative quiet of your family's space is instantly replaced by the rising hum of the city. The lane you live on is narrow, barely wide enough for two people to pass comfortably, and the packed earth is already scuffed with the day's first footprints. The air here is sharper, carrying the acrid smell of the nearby communal refuse pit and the pungent, earthy scent of animal dung. A neighbor, a potter with clay already smeared on his arms, nods a greeting as he hauls a basket of unfired pots towards his workshop. You return the gesture, a silent acknowledgement of your shared early start. This is the first of 100 small, nonverbal interactions you'll have before you even reach your destination, the end of the lane. You turn onto a wider thoroughfare, and the hum explodes into a full-throated roar. It's the sound of a city waking up, a chaotic symphony of human endeavor. Donkey carts, the heavy-duty vehicles of your world, rumble along on solid wooden wheels, their drivers shouting warnings that are mostly ignored. One laden with freshly harvested vegetables from the fields beyond the town nearly clips your shoulder. You press yourself flat against the warm, dusty wall of a house, feeling the rough texture of the mud brick on your back until it passes. There are no traffic laws here, no stop signs, no designated lanes. The only rule is that might makes right. The The bigger and more determined you are, the more likely others are to get out of your way. It's a daily ballet of near misses and jostling elbows. Your senses are flooded. The air is thick with smells. The irresistible aroma of bread baking in a commercial bakery, the sharp scent of onions being fried at a street-side stall, the sweet perfume of incense wafting from a small shrine dedicated to Bes, the dwarf god of households and protector of women and children. But layered beneath these pleasant scents are the less romantic ones. The dust kicked up by 100 passing feet, the sour smell of unwashed bodies in close proximity, and the ever-present odor of animal waste. You learn to breathe through your mouth, a small trick to filter out the worst of the olfactory assault. You walk with a practiced, steady gait, your eyes constantly scanning the path ahead. Not for thieves, though they are certainly a concern, but for more mundane hazards. You deftly step over a dark, mysterious puddle of liquid you have no desire to identify. You sidestep a group of naked children laughing as they chase a rolling hoop down the middle of the street. You ignore the high-pitched sales pitch of a man selling protective amulets, his wares spread out on a dirty cloth. He promises they can ward off everything from scorpion stings to bureaucratic audits. You almost consider the second one. It feels like a far more immediate threat in your line of work. That's a little joke you tell yourself every morning. This is the very essence of urban life in Ptolemaic Egypt. While the great temples and palaces might be marvels of geometric precision, the towns that surround them are often chaotic, organic growths. The mainstream fact of your daily life is that you are living in a network of streets that were never planned. They simply evolved, twisting and turning along ancient footpaths, widening and narrowing based on the whims of the builders. On either side, your commute is a daily exploration of this haphazard, living maze. You pass a food vendor scooping fried fish out of a cauldron of bubbling oil. The smell is intoxicatingly good. This is a quirky, delicious fact of your world. Fast food is everywhere. For those without the time or facilities to cook at home, the streets offer a smorgasbord of ready-to-eat meals. Roasted waterfowl, stewed beans, grilled onions, and of course, handfuls of fried fish, salted and wrapped in a leaf. It's food for the people, cheap, hot, and calorie-dense. You're tempted, but you have the dense little loaf from your mother, and your budget doesn't have much room for such impulsive delights. Besides, you saw the vendor wipe his nose on the back of his hand a moment ago, which kind of kills the appetite. The crowd is a river of humanity, and you are just one drop within it. Farmers with calloused feet and sun-darkened skin head back into town after selling their produce at the dawn market. Craftsmen, like the potter you saw earlier, hurry towards their workshops. Women, their long linen dresses swaying, walk with incredible poise, balancing large water jugs on their heads as they return from the nearest clean canal or public well. You see a flash of color and wealth. A minor official, his kilt made of finer, bleached linen, is carried above the throng in a small wooden litter borne by 4 sweating servants. He looks down on the dusty chaos with an expression of serene detachment. For a brief moment, you envy him, not for his wealth, but for his clean feet. You see neighbors gossiping in doorways, using the street as an extension of their homes. A couple of men are engaged in a loud, animated argument over a game of Senate they've drawn in the dirt. This lively, communal atmosphere brings to mind a question that people in the far future might ponder. Historians still debate how these streets were perceived by those who used them every day. Were they seen as vibrant public squares, centers for social interaction and community life, or were they merely functional, chaotic corridors to be navigated as swiftly as possible on the way to somewhere else? For you, on a workday morning, the answer is definitely the latter. You are a man with a destination, a purpose, and the vibrant social life of the street is just an obstacle course. As you draw closer to the heart of the town, the character of your surroundings begins to shift. The buildings are larger, some even boasting limestone door frames and painted plaster. The street is slightly wider, and you see more people who carry themselves with an air of importance. Priests in their distinctive white linen, soldiers in leather armor, and fellow scribes, identifiable by the wooden pallets tucked under their arms. The ambient noise changes, too. The boisterous shouts of market vendors give way to more measured, administrative chatter. You can feel the gravitational pull of the great temple precinct. Finally, you see it. Rising above the squat, two-story buildings of the town are the massive, sun-bleached sandstone walls of the temple complex. At the top of the wall, you can just make out the heads of the carved vultures, symbols of the goddess Nekhbet, protectors of the sacred space within. The entrance is a monumental gateway, a pylon, flanked by towering statues of a seated pharaoh, though which pharaoh is a matter of some local confusion. The Ptolemaic rulers keep building and renaming things, layering their Greek identity over the ancient traditions of the land. You feel a familiar sense of transition as you approach the gate. You are leaving the messy, organic, and deeply human world of the public street and preparing to enter a space that is ordered, sacred, and governed by rules far stricter than the simple chaos of the morning commute. Your pace quickens slightly with anticipation, or perhaps just the desire to finally sit down. The long walk is over. Your workday is about to begin. You pass through the shadow of the great pylon, and the world changes in a heartbeat. The air inside the temple precinct is immediately several degrees cooler. The massive stone walls holding the morning chill long after the streets outside have begun to bake. The cacophony of the city is cut off as if by a closing door, replaced by a profound, echoing quiet. Your footsteps, silent on the dusty street, now make a soft, scraping sound on the paved courtyard, a sound that seems impossibly loud in the stillness. You are officially in a different realm, one where the gods are closer and the rules of men are absolute. You walk across a vast open-air court, the rising sun casting long, sharp shadows from the towering columns carved to look like bundles of papyrus reeds. The sheer scale of everything is designed to make you feel small, insignificant, a mortal in the domain of the eternal. High above, on the stone architraves, brightly painted reliefs depict the Ptolemaic king making offerings to Horus, the falcon-headed god to whom this temple is dedicated. It's a scene of perfect, divine order, a stark contrast to the chaotic humanity you just left behind. Priests in crisp, white linen robes glide silently past, their heads shaved and their bodies ritually purified. They don't acknowledge you. You are part of the temple's machinery, necessary but invisible, like a cog in a divine clock. From a chamber to your left, you hear the low, rhythmic chanting of a liturgy and the rich, heady scent of burning incense and roasting meat. The daily offerings to the god wafts towards you. You are not permitted in those sacred spaces. Your path lies elsewhere. You skirt the main courtyards, following a series of smaller, less trafficked corridors and passages. You pass massive granaries where the temple's wealth, collected as taxes from the surrounding agricultural land, is stored. You pass workshops for sculptors and goldsmiths, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of their hammers a familiar part of the temple's soundscape. Finally, you arrive at a rather plain, unassuming building set back from the main processional ways. There are no grand carvings. On its lintel, no imposing statues flanking its door. This is your destination, the Parank, the House of Life. This is the intellectual and spiritual engine room of the entire temple complex, a fact that is as mainstream and central to your world as it gets. The House of Life is not merely a scriptorium for copying old texts. It is a library, a university, a publisher, and a magical workshop all rolled into one. It's here that new religious texts are composed, medical treatises are studied and edited, astronomical charts are drawn up to determine festival dates, and magical spells are transcribed for the use of the gods, the king, and the dead. The words and images created in this building are believed to be vital for maintaining Ma'at, the cosmic order of truth, balance, and justice. No pressure, right? You step inside, and the atmosphere shifts again. The room is long and relatively narrow, illuminated by high, clear-story windows that let in shafts of bright, indirect light, perfect for detailed work. The air is still and smells of papyrus, ink, and focused human effort. There are no desks or chairs. About 20 other scribes are already at work, sitting cross-legged on the floor in neat rows, their reed mats defining their personal workspace. Before each of them lies a wooden pallet, and in their laps, a sheet of papyrus is stretched taut. The only sounds are the gentle rustle of the papyrus sheets and the faint, whispery scratch of reed, pens moving across the page. It's the ancient Egyptian version of an open-plan office, and it comes with all the same social anxieties. You spot your usual place against the far wall and make your way towards it. As you walk, the subtle dance of office politics begins. You catch the eye of IP, a friend who specializes in drawing the intricate vignettes for funerary texts. He gives you a barely perceptible nod and a slight widening of the eyes that clearly communicates the chief scribe is in a terrible mood today. Be careful. You return the nod, a silent thanks for the warning. A few feet away sits Mehe. You and Mehe are like two crocodiles fighting over the same choice piece of riverbank. You are both talented, both ambitious, and both vying for the next promotion to the rank of outline scribe, a draftsman who gets to do the initial, prestigious sketches on major projects. You studiously avoid his gaze, but you can feel him watching you as you pass. You know he finished a major land survey register yesterday, and he'll make sure the chief scribe knows it. The silence between you is louder than any of the shouting in the street. It's the ancient equivalent of being left off a group email chain, and it stings just as much. And then there's the chief scribe himself, the overseer of the scribes, Pintu. He's a stern, older man with eyes that seem to see every misplaced dot of ink, every slightly shaky line. He isn't at his raised administrative desk at the front of the room. He's prowling the aisles, a silent, intimidating presence. As he passes each scribe, they seem to shrink, their focus on their work becoming almost painfully intense. He is the ultimate micromanager, a boss who trusts no one and believes that his mere presence prevents slacking. A light joke you and IP share is that Pinta probably thinks the sun wouldn't rise if he weren't awake to supervise it. You finally reach your spot and unroll the small rush mat you carry with you. You sit, tucking your feet beneath you, and for a moment, you observe the room. Here's a quirky tidbit for you. Many scribes believe that the act of writing was itself a form of magic. To write the name of a god was to invoke that god's presence. To draw a protective symbol gave that symbol power. Because of this, discipline in the scriptorium was incredibly strict. A mistake in a sacred text wasn't just an error. It was an act of impiety, a small crack in the cosmic order. This belief imbued your mundane job with a heavy, sometimes terrifying, significance. As you look around this functional, slightly crowded room, you think about the grand tales you've heard of other houses of life. This brings up a topic historians still argue about: the true nature of the parank. Was it always a specific, grand institution, a kind of ancient library of Alexandria in every major temple? Or was the term House of Life more of a concept, referring to any collection of scribes and texts, which might be housed in a series of disconnected, practical workrooms like this one? Looking at the plaster-ran mudbrick reality around you, with its efficient but decidedly unglamorous layout, you suspect the latter is closer to the truth. The grandeur was in the work, not the workspace. You take a deep breath, pushing the rivalries, the anxieties, and the sheer weight of expectation to the back of your mind. You have a job to do. The temple needs its records, the gods need their hymns, and the dead need their guidebooks to the afterlife. And you, a humble scribe, are the conduit for it all. It's time to get out your tools. The day has truly begun. You settle onto your mat, the low hum of disciplined work filling the space around you. The social anxieties of the room begin to fade into the background as you turn to the familiar, comforting ritual of preparing your tools. This is your domain, a small island of personal order in the vast temple. You reach into the simple linen bag you carried from home and draw out the single most important object you own, your scribe's palette. It's a long, narrow slab of sycamore wood, about the length of your forearm, worn smooth and dark with years of use. Its surface is silky to the touch, polished by the palm of your hand day after day. At one end, a cleverly carved slot holds your clutch of reed pens. At the other end are two shallow, circular depressions, the inkwells. This palette is more than a tool. It's your badge of office, the physical manifestation of your skill and your profession. A farmer has his hoe, a soldier his spear, and you have this elegant piece of wood. It was a gift from your first teacher, and you treasure it. Next, you retrieve a small, unassuming ceramic pot, no bigger than your fist, which you fill with clean water from a larger jug kept in the corner of the room. This water is your catalyst, the element that will bring your tools to life. You dip your index finger into the water and let a single drop fall onto the cake of black ink in one of the wells on your palette. The ink isn't liquid. It's a solid block made from fine carbon soot, scraped from the bottom of communal cooking pots that has been mixed with a natural plant gum to bind it together. You begin to rub the wet fingertip gently on the cake, and a thick, dark paste begins to form. The smell is smoky and familiar. You do the same for the second cake of ink, the red one. This one is made from finely ground red ochre, a type of iron-rich earth. The red is for important things, headings, dates, the names of demons, or the opening words of a new paragraph. It's the ancient way of creating emphasis, of telling the reader, pay attention to this part. Now for the pens. From the slot in your palette, you slide out a small bundle of thin reeds, each one hollow and dried to a pale yellow. These are your writing implements, cut from a type of sea rush that grows in the marshlands. You roll them between your fingers, feeling for the right balance and stiffness. Each one is different. This is a far more intimate process than just picking up a pen. You select a promising candidate and bring the tip to your mouth. This might seem strange, but it's a crucial step. You chew the end very carefully, using your teeth to crush and separate the fibers, transforming the hard, hollow tip into a tiny, flexible brush. The taste is grassy and dry. You have to do this just right. Too much chewing and the brush is too soft and wide. Too little and it's too stiff to hold a good amount of ink. Some scribes prefer a sharp knife to cut the reed at an angle for very fine lines. But for the flowing hieratic script you'll be using today, the brush tip is superior. It's a small, personal skill that every scribe perfects over time. Having prepared your pen, you reach back into your bag and pull out a small, flat shard of a broken pot. This is an ostrakhan, your scrap paper. This is a wonderfully quirky fact. Of your economic life, papyrus, your primary writing surface, is far too expensive for casual use. So, for practice, for calculations, for drafting a difficult phrase, or just for testing a pen, you use these fragments of pottery or flakes of limestone, which are abundant and, most importantly, free. You dip your freshly chewed reed tip into the black ink you prepared, get a feel for the ink load, and draw a quick, perfect ink, the symbol of life, on the rough surface of the pottery shard. The pen works beautifully. The final and most crucial element of your toolkit arrives with a quiet attendant who moves down the rows. He carries a roll of fresh papyrus. This is the moment that always carries a slight thrill of anxiety. The papyrus is the temple's property, and it is incredibly valuable. A mainstream historical fact that you understand implicitly is the monumental effort that goes into creating a single sheet. Workers in the Delta marshes harvest the tall cyperus papyrus plant, peel its tough outer rind, and slice the inner pith into thin, ribbon-like strips. These strips are then laid down in two perpendicular layers, like a crosshatch. They are soaked in water, pressed under immense weight, which releases the plant's own sticky sap to act as a glue, and then left to dry in the sun until they form a single, unified, flexible sheet. The entire process was a state-controlled industry, a cornerstone of the Egyptian economy for millennia. Wasting a sheet of this stuff through carelessness is not just a mistake, it's a financial liability. It would be like a modern office worker accidentally printing a 1,000-page document on premium photo paper. Your salary would be docked for a week. The attendant hands you a single, large sheet. You handle it with the reverence it deserves. You unroll it carefully across your lap, your thighs, and the taut fabric of your kilt providing a firm, portable desk. One side, the recto, has the papyrus fibers running horizontally. It's the smoother side and the preferred side for writing. The other side, the verso, has vertical fibers and is slightly rougher. You can feel the difference instantly under your fingertips. You use a small, smooth stone you keep in your bag to gently burnish a small rough spot on the sheet, pressing the fibers down. You settle into your working posture, cross-legged on your mat, your back straight, the papyrus spread across your lap. And immediately, you feel a familiar ache in your lower back. This brings to life a question historians and Egyptologists still debate. The iconic image of the Egyptian scribe is the one you see in statues, sitting perfectly upright, cross-legged, attentive. But was this an artistic ideal or a practical reality? Scholars still argue about how scribes actually sat for hours on end. Did they maintain this perfect, statue-like pose all day? Or did they shift and fidget, leaning against a pillar, kneeling, or even lying on their stomachs to relieve the inevitable cramps and pains? As you subtly shift your weight, trying to find a more comfortable angle, you can personally attest that staying in one position for hours is a fantasy. You'll be in at least 3 different, equally undignified positions before the midday break, with your palette resting beside you, your water pot within easy reach, and the pristine, expensive sheet of papyrus waiting on your lap. The ritual of preparation is complete. The world has narrowed to this small, focused space. The politics of the room, the heat of the day, the life you left at home, it all recedes. There is only you, your tools, and the task ahead. You dip your pen in the ink, lift it, and hold it poised just above the sheet, ready to make the first mark. You touch the tip of your reed brush to the papyrus. There's a soft, satisfying whisper as the ink makes contact, a tiny bloom of black that you immediately pull into a graceful, curving line. The first stroke. The blank page is broken, and your work has begun. The chief scribe, pinned to, silently, places the master document you are to copy beside you. It's a roll of papyrus, darkened with age, its edges slightly frayed from countless sessions of being unrolled and re-rolled. The script on it, however, is flawless, the work of a master from a generation ago. Your assignment is to create a perfect replica of one section of this scroll for the funerary equipment of a wealthy city administrator who passed away 2 days ago. The text is a collection of spells and utterances from the Book of Coming Forth by Day, a document that future generations will somewhat inaccurately call the Book of the Dead. This is a core fact of your spiritual world. It's not a single, cohesive book written by one author. Instead, it's more like a customizable travel guide. For the afterlife, a collection of essential spells from which a client could pick and choose, depending on their budget. The scroll you're creating will be placed in the coffin, a map and a book of passwords to help the deceased navigate the treacherous landscape of the underworld, overcome hostile demons, and successfully pass the final judgment before Osiris. You are not writing in the formal, pictorial hieroglyphs that adorn temple walls. That script is for monuments, for eternity, beautiful but cumbersome. Your work is done in hieratic, the scribe's true language. It is the cursive, flowing form of hieroglyphs, where the detailed picture of a bird is reduced to a few quick, elegant strokes of the pen, yet retains its essential meaning. It is a script designed for speed and efficiency, the workhorse of all Egyptian administration, literature, and religious documentation. Writing in hieratic is like having a private, shorthand version of a public language, a skill that marks you as part of an exclusive, literate club. The work is slow and requires a level of concentration that is almost meditative. You read a short phrase from the master copy on your left. You hold the sequence of shapes, the rhythm and flow of the words in your mind. Then, you turn to your fresh sheet of papyrus and execute the phrase with a steady, practiced hand. Your arm doesn't move. The writing comes from the subtle, controlled movements of your wrist and fingers. Dip the pen. Read the next phrase. Hold it. Write it. The world shrinks down to these 3 simple actions, repeated over and over. The rustle of papyrus and the soft breathing of the scribe next to you are the only sounds that penetrate your bubble of focus. The section you are copying today is Chapter 125, one of the most famous and most important parts of the book. It includes the Declaration of Innocence, or as you privately think of it, the ultimate "it wasn't me" list. With each stroke, you form the words that the deceased will speak before the 42 divine judges in the Hall of Two Truths. I have not committed sin against people, you write. I have not impoverished my associates. I have not stolen. The list goes on, a comprehensive catalog of every potential misdeed, each one denied. As you copy the confident, absolute denials, you can't help but quietly compare them to your own life. I have not spoken deceitfully. Well, mostly not. I have not been an eavesdropper. You try to ignore the gossip you were listening to just an hour ago. You just hope the official you're writing this for was as virtuous as he's claiming to be. Otherwise, you're essentially composing a work of very expensive fiction for the gods. This is where the pressure truly mounts. Your work is not just a document. It's a vital piece of spiritual technology. A mistake is not a typo. It is a grave offense that could have eternal consequences. If you miscopy a divine name, you might invoke the wrong entity. If you omit a crucial negative adverb in the Declaration of Innocence, you could accidentally make the deceased confess to a crime. One slip of your hand could theoretically cause the deceased's heart to be found heavier than the feather of Maat, resulting in it being tossed to Ammit, the terrifying hybrid monster who devours the souls of the unworthy. Talk about a high-stakes proofreading gig. The ever-present, silent patrol of Penta behind you is a constant reminder of this. His job is to ensure cosmic order, one perfectly transcribed scroll at a time. You finish the long declaration and move on to the next spell, which brings you to a wonderfully quirky and specific piece of afterlife insurance. Chapter 30b. This is the spell for not letting a deceased's heart create opposition against him, and it's the text that was often inscribed on the heart scarab amulets placed over the mummy's heart. You carefully copy the words that are, in essence, a direct command to your own conscience. O my heart which I had from my mother, O my heart of my different ages, do not stand up as a witness against me, do not oppose me in the tribunal, do not be hostile to me in the presence of the keeper of the balance. It's a brilliant bit of spiritual lawyering, a magical gag order on your own heart to prevent it from tattling on you at the most critical moment, as you meticulously form the signs for this spell. You reflect on a question that you can't quite answer, one that scholars in a distant future will also wrestle with. Historians still argue about the degree to which a working copyist like you truly engaged with the deep theological content of these texts. Are you a pious scholar, feeling the profound magical and religious weight of every word you write? Or are you a highly skilled technician, your mind focused entirely on the accurate reproduction of forms and lines, the meaning is secondary, almost abstract concern? You look at the complex symbols that refer to the weighing of the soul, and you realize the answer is somewhere in between. You have to understand the text to space it correctly and ensure it makes sense, but the intense focus required for perfect penmanship pushes the deeper meaning into a soft, intellectual hum in the back of your mind. You are, first and foremost, a craftsman. An hour or more melts away in this state of deep concentration. The shaft of light from the high window has moved across the room, now illuminating the back of the scribe in the row ahead of you. You complete the final line of the assigned section, a neat column of black hieratic script, stark and clear against the pale yellow papyrus. You hold it up for a moment, scanning for errors, your own harshest critic. It looks perfect. You allow yourself a moment of quiet satisfaction, placing the sheet carefully to your right side to let the ink fully dry. You flex your stiff fingers and roll your shoulders, the physical toll of the mental effort making itself known. The most sacred and most stressful part of your workday is complete. You carefully lift your finished sheet of papyrus and carry it to a wooden rack at the side of the room, a simple construction where new documents are left to dry completely, safe from being smeared. As you place it alongside several others, you feel the tension in your shoulders begin to ease. At that moment, as if on cue, the chief scribe Penta strikes a small metal bar at his desk. The single, clear ping cuts through the quiet focus of the room, signaling the mid-morning break. A collective, quiet sigh of relief washes through the scriptorium. The invisible bonds of concentration are broken. Scribes begin to stretch, to murmur to one another, and to pack away their tools with a practiced efficiency. The spell is broken. You return to your spot, gather your palette and pens into your bag, and catch the eye of your friend IP. He's already on his feet, a look of pure, unadulterated relief on his face. He jerks his head towards the doorway, a clear invitation. You nod, and together you file out of the house of life, emerging from its cool, focused dimness back into the bright, warm air of the temple courtyard. You don't go far. Your break spot is a small, shaded portico just a few steps away, its roof offering a welcome refuge from the climbing sun. A few other groups of scribes have the same idea, clustering in small circles, their voices a low, conspiratorial buzz. You and IP find a comfortable spot on a low stone bench, the sandstone warm beneath you. You reach into your bag and pull out the rest of your morning's provisions, another of your mother's dense barley loaves, and a handful of sweet, sticky dates. You unstopper the small clay jug of beer and take a long, grateful swallow. It's not the crisp, refreshing beverage of the future. It's thick, slightly sour, and barely alcoholic, with a porridge-like consistency that means you're both drinking and eating it. This beer, or hanket, is a foundational part of your world, a mainstream fact of life for everyone from the pharaoh to the lowest field hand. It's a primary source of calories, vitamins, and hydration, generally much safer to drink than untreated water. For many workers on state and temple projects, beer and bread are not just food. They are their salary, their daily ration. You are paid a salary in coin, a privilege of your rank, but the daily allotment of bread and beer is still a fundamental, expected part of the compensation package. IP takes a swig of his own beer and lets out a dramatic sigh. If I have to draw one more scene of the deceased playing a perfect game of Senate against an invisible opponent, I might use my pen to blind myself, he groans. IP is a draftsman, his specialty being the illustrations, or vignettes, that accompany the text you write. The man's family wants him depicted with the muscles of a champion wrestler. I saw the body when they brought it for embalming. The only muscle he had was in his tongue. You chuckle and tear off a piece of bread. Better that than what Mehei is doing, you say, nodding discreetly towards your rival, who has chosen not to join the gossiping circles. Instead, he's standing near the main path, pretending to study a wall inscription, but clearly hoping to be seen looking diligent by a passing priest. I think he spends his nights practicing that pious expression in a bowl of water. A third scribe, a quiet, older man named Keenan, joins you, sitting on the ground and leaning against the pillar. Worse, Keenan says in a low voice, I saw him. This morning, he wasn't delivering his finished work to the drying racks. He took it himself, directly to the chamber of the chief lector priest. You and IP exchange a look. This is significant. Bypassing the entire scribal hierarchy, including Pintu, to present work directly to one of the temple's highest-ranking officials is a bold, almost reckless, political move. It's the ancient equivalent of CCing the CEO on an email about a minor project update. He's not trying to get promoted anymore. You murmur, realizing the scope of his ambition. He's trying to get a private commission, his own work, not just temple assignments. The three of you fall silent for a moment, contemplating the sheer audacity of Mehei's maneuvering. The Whisper Network is, as always, more efficient and more interesting than any official proclamation. The conversation shifts, a perfect illustration of a quirky little tidbit about temple life, the complex, interwoven society of the staff. The temple is a city within a city, employing not just priests and scribes, but bakers, brewers, weavers, janitors, farmers, and guards. The gossip flows freely between these groups. My cousin who works in the kitchens, Keenan says, leaning in closer, told me that the shipment of wine from the Western Oasis, the one reserved for the Festival of Horus, was found to be watered down. The cellar master is blaming the traders. The traders are blaming the boatmen, and the high priest is threatening to make them all live on nothing but water until the god is satisfied. This is the kind of news you love, petty, human drama set against a backdrop of divine importance. It's a reminder that for all the monumental stone and sacred rituals, the temple is run by flawed, ordinary people with their own squabbles and schemes. As you listen to IP and Keenan trade stories, you think about these relationships. This brings to mind a subtle historical debate. Scholars of the future will argue whether friendships in the rigid, hierarchical society of ancient Egypt were purely transactional, alliances of convenience for mutual protection and the sharing of information, or if they were built on genuine personal affection. You look at IP, who is now dramatically reenacting the cellar master's supposed panic, and you laugh. It has to be both. You rely on Keenan for information and IP for solidarity, but you also genuinely like them. Their presence makes the grueling, repetitive nature of your job bearable. The news then travels beyond the temple walls. My uncle just came back from the docks, Keenan adds, his voice dropping again. He heard from a Greek sea captain that there's another royal decree coming from Alexandria. The boy king, Ptolemy V, has ordered a new survey of all flax fields. They're raising the tax on linen production. You and IP both groan. This is not idle gossip. This is work. A new tax means new registers, new calculations, endless columns of figures to be recorded, checked, and double-checked. It means more late nights for scribes in every town up and down the Nile. You are the accountants of this vast kingdom, the essential cogs in the bureaucratic machine that grinds on, regardless of who wears the crown in Alexandria, a Greek or a native Egyptian. The shadow of the portico's roof has shifted. The break is almost over. Across the courtyard, you see Pintu's imposing figure appear in the doorway of the scriptorium. He doesn't say a word, but his message is clear. The chattering of the scribes dies down. You quickly finish your bread, take one last swig of beer, and stopper your jug. You and your friends share a final look, a shared, silent acknowledgement of the work that awaits. The brief respite of camaraderie and gossip is over. You stand up, brush the crumbs from your kilt, and with a feeling of weary resignation, you walk back towards the house of life to begin the afternoon's labors. You return to your mat, the taste of beer and dates still faint in your mouth. The brief camaraderie of the break dissolves as you settle back into your workspace. The air in the scriptorium is once again thick with a studious silence, a collective understanding that the short reprieve is over. Pintu is back at his elevated desk, his hawkish gaze sweeping across the room. The afternoon grind has begun. There is no sacred, ancient scroll placed beside you this time. Instead, a junior attendant approaches and deposits a clattering, dusty pile of broken pottery shards on the floor next to your mat. These are your source documents for the afternoon. Each ostrakon is covered in hastily scrawled hieratic notes, the handwriting of a junior scribe who has just returned from surveying the barley harvest on the temple's agricultural estates. Alongside the pile of shards, the attendant places a fresh, clean sheet of papyrus. Your task is to transform this chaotic jumble of raw field data into a formal, orderly, and, above all, accurate ledger. You sigh internally. This is the other side of your job, the pivot from the sacred to the profane. This morning, you were a conduit for divine knowledge, your pen strokes paving a path to the eternal afterlife. This afternoon, you are an accountant. The lofty poetry of the Book of Coming Forth by Day is replaced by the stark, unyielding reality of crop yields and tax obligations. Your first challenge is simply deciphering the notes on the ostraca. The junior scribe, a young man named Bach, clearly wrote these while standing in a hot field, juggling his writing tools and probably trying to avoid being kicked by a donkey. The symbols are sloppy, the numbers are cramped, and there's a suspicious smudge on one that looks remarkably like bird droppings. It's like trying to read a message transcribed during a minor earthquake. With a practiced eye, you begin the painstaking work. You pick up the first shard, holding it close to your face. You identify a farmer's name, then the designation for his plot of land, and finally, the crucial number, the yield, measured in sacks of grain. You then turn to your pristine sheet of papyrus. Using a reed with a finer, harder tip better suited for columns and figures, you begin to construct the ledger. You draw a series of neat, vertical lines, creating columns. Using your pot of red ink, you write the headings at the top of each column: farmer's name, plot size, in aruras, gross yield, in sacks, and the two most important columns, temples, share and royal tax. Now comes the math, and this is where the quirky, cumbersome nature of your number system makes the work a grind. You operate on a base 10 system, but it lacks the elegant concept of place value. You have a distinct symbol for 1, a single vertical stroke; for 10, a hobble; for cattle; for 100, a coil of rope; for 1,000, a lotus flower, and so on. To write the number 2,345, you would need to draw 2 lotus flowers, 3 coils of rope for cattle hobbles, and 5 vertical strokes. It's functional, but it makes arithmetic a visual and mental slog. You read from the first ostrakon. The farmer Mena, on plot C7, has produced 38 sacks of barley. The temple's share is 1/3. You do the calculation in your head and make a few scratch marks on a spare ostrakon to be sure. 12 2/3 sacks. You note it down, using the specific hieratic signs for fractions. Then you must calculate the king's tax, which is a further percentage of the temple's share. Your brain, which was soaring with gods and demons, this morning is now bogged down in fractional arithmetic. You double-check your work, not just because Pinta might review it, but because these numbers have real-world consequences. A mistake in the temple's favor could mean a farmer's family goes hungry. A mistake in the farmer's favor means the temple granaries, and by extension, the temple's ability to pay its staff and fund its rituals, are diminished. It's the kind of math that makes your temples throb. As you work your way down the pile of shards, you see a name you recognize. Amos, a man who lives a few lanes over from your own family. You know him to be a hard worker, but his recorded yield is surprisingly low this season. You pause for a moment, picturing his small, sun-cracked plot of land. Was it a bad year for his section of the irrigation canals? Did a swarm of locusts pass through? Or is Amos just exceptionally clever at hiding a few sacks of grain when the temple assessors come around? You've heard tales of farmers with hidden cellars and buried grain pots. You can't help but smile a little. You will, of course, record the official number, but you make a mental note to see if Amos' family seems to be eating particularly well in the coming weeks. You look at the columns of figures growing steadily down the papyrus sheet. This is the engine of your entire civilization, a mainstream fact made manifest in your careful script. The legendary fertility of the Nile Valley, renewed each year by the inundation, produces a staggering agricultural surplus. That surplus is the wealth that funds everything. It pays for the towering pylons of the temple, the gold leaf on the cult statues, the salaries of the priests, the wages of the soldiers, and the luxurious lifestyles of the Greek elite in Alexandria. And the entire system depends on you, the scribe. You are the nervous system of the economy, transmitting the raw data from the fields into the organized ledgers that allow for the efficient collection and redistribution of that wealth. Without your meticulous records, the whole magnificent enterprise would collapse into chaos. As you calculate the final column, the royal tax, you are reminded of the complex power dynamics of your era. The temple is an ancient, powerful Egyptian institution, a massive landowner and economic force in its own right. But the ultimate authority, the one with the army, is the Ptolemaic king. And so, a portion of the temple's income must be rendered unto the Greek government in Alexandria. This brings a subtle scholarly debate to life right on your ledger sheet. Historians of the future will argue fiercely about the relationship between the native Egyptian temples and the foreign Ptolemaic rulers. Were the temples semi-independent kingdoms, grudgingly paying tribute to an outside power? Or were they, for all their religious authority, effectively co-opted, becoming just another administrative branch of the state? As you write down the total owed to King Ptolemy V, it certainly feels like your powerful priestly employers have a boss of their own. The afternoon wears on. The initial heat of the day has settled into a thick, oppressive warmth inside the scriptorium. Your back aches. Your eyes feel gritty from focusing on the tiny, repetitive symbols. This is the unglamorous reality of your job. There is no divine inspiration in a tax ledger, no path to enlightenment in a column of figures. There is only the quiet, steady, essential grind. You pick up the next ostracon from the pile. A new name, a new plot, a new set of numbers. You dip your pen in the ink, and you continue. The rhythm of your work, read the shard, do the math, write the line, dip the pen, has become a trance. Name, plot, yield, tax. The world has shrunk to these four concepts. But just as your mind is about to glaze over completely, the rhythm is broken. You feel a presence beside you and look up from your ledger. It is Pintu, the chief scribe. He doesn't speak. He simply looks at you, then jerks his head towards the main doorway of the scriptorium. Your gaze follows his. Standing hesitantly in the archway, blinking against the relative dimness of the room, are a man and a woman. They are frozen in place, clearly terrified of crossing the threshold into this sacred space of letters and learning. This is the other part of your afternoon grind. You are not just an accountant for the temple. You are a public notary for the illiterate masses. You carefully place a stone weight on your tax ledger, rise from your mat, and walk towards the couple. As you get closer, you see them more clearly. They are farmers, their linen kilts coarser and darker than yours, their bare feet caked with the rich Nile mud of their fields. Their faces are weathered by a lifetime of sun, and their hands, which they nervously twist together, are calloused and strong. They look at you with a mixture of awe and desperation. You give them a small, reassuring nod and lead them not into the main workroom, which would be a breach of protocol, but to a small, semi-private alcove near the entrance. It's a space designated for this very purpose, quiet enough for conversation, but still within the supervisory gaze of Pinto. You sit on a low stone bench and gesture for them to tell you their story. The man, whose name you learn is Neb, bursts out with his grievance before he even sits down. His words come in an angry, disorganized torrent. He speaks of his neighbor, a man named Passayer, in terms that are both colorful and deeply insulting. He talks of a goat, a fence, and a patch of onions. His wife, Iset, keeps interrupting him. No, tell him about the cucumbers first, dear. The onions were after the cucumbers. It wasn't 2 nights ago, it was 3, I told you. Your first job is to be a peacemaker, to calm the chaotic flood of human emotion into a manageable stream of facts. You hold up a hand, a gesture for silence that they, surprisingly, obey. You pull out a spare ostrakhan and your pen. Let's start from the beginning. You say, your voice calm and steady. Passayer's goat. When did it first enter your garden? You spend the next 20 minutes as part investigator, part therapist. You ask simple, direct questions, cutting through the anger and accusations to find the core of the dispute. How high was the fence? Was the gate broken? How many times has this happened before? Did anyone else see it? What, precisely, was eaten? As Neb describes his ruined onion patch, his voice cracks with genuine grief. For him, this isn't a petty squabble. It's a direct threat to his family's food supply. This is a mainstream fact of your existence that the ledger sheets don't show. For the 99% of the population who are illiterate, access to the justice system is entirely dependent on a scribe like you. Without you, their complaint has no official existence. It is just a shout in the wind. Neb finishes his tirade by declaring that his neighbor, Passayer, is the misbegotten offspring of a flea-bitten donkey and a blind crocodile. You nod gravely, as if taking this genealogical detail into serious consideration. Then you say, I see. So, for the petition, we will refer to him as my esteemed neighbor. This gets a flicker of a confused smile from Iset, and the tension drops a notch. This is the art of your work, translating the raw, furious language of the heart into the flowery, obsequious, and rigorously formulaic language of the law. Here's a quirky but essential tidbit of your legal culture. The form of a petition is almost more important than its content. You explain this to Neb and Iset. The complaint must begin by praising the greatness and wisdom of the magistrate. You tell them, we will say that his judgment is as true as the scales of Thoth. We will refer to you, Neb, as this humble servant or your faithful peasant. They listen, rapt. You are initiating them into the mysteries of bureaucracy, a world as strange and powerful to them as the underworld itself. As you begin to frame the petition in your mind, you are aware of the power you wield, and this brings a complex scholarly debate into your little alcove. Historians in the far future will argue about the neutrality of scribes in these proceedings. Were you simply an impartial recorder, a human typewriter for hire? Or could you, and did you, act as an advocate, subtly shaping the narrative to favor one party? You look at Neb's earnest, angry face. You could write that the goat ate his onions, or you could write that it maliciously devastated his entire winter crop, leaving his family on the brink of starvation. The first phrasing might result in a verbal warning for Passayer. The second could lead to a heavy fine and compensation. Your choice of a single word could change a man's life. You decide that Neb's anger seems justified. You'll go with something strong. Having gathered the facts and outlined the structure, you explain the final step. You will write the formal petition on a clean sheet of papyrus. The papyrus itself is not free. They must pay the temple's set price for it. Then, for your services, for your time, your skill, your legal knowledge, they must pay you a fee directly. They agree without hesitation. Iset reaches into a small pouch and pulls out the required pieces of copper for the papyrus. Then Neb steps forward and hands you your payment. A few more copper coins and, from a small wicker cage they brought with them, a live chicken. You take the bird. It's plump enough. You just hope it hasn't been eating any of its owner's evidence. You write out the final petition in your best, clearest hand. The language is formal and beautiful, full of humble entreaties and praise for the established order. You read it aloud to them when you are finished. They don't understand all the words, but they are visibly impressed by the sound of it, the sheer gravity and authority of the written text. It makes their complaint feel real, important. Neb takes the rolled-up papyrus from you, handling it as if it were a holy relic. It is their proof, their voice, their hope. They thank you profusely and depart, leaving you with a chicken, a few extra coins in your bag, and the lingering smell of honest, earthy labor. You watch them go, a small, determined unit marching off to seek justice. The brief, intense human drama is over. You tuck the coins away and figure out where to keep the chicken for the rest of the afternoon. Then, you return to your mat, to the endless, abstract, and suddenly very quiet columns of the temple tax ledger. The name of the next farmer on the list seems to float before your eyes, a pale ghost compared to the vivid, angry face of the man who just left. The late afternoon sun now casts long, golden bars of light through the high windows of the scriptorium, illuminating the tired faces and dusty air of the room. You have just finished the final entry on the tax ledger. With a weary hand, you've tallied the last column and drawn the neat double line that signifies the end of the document. For a long moment, you just stare at it, a sprawling grid of names and numbers, a testament to a long afternoon of relentless, monotonous concentration. The ghost of the farmer's angry, vivid dispute has long since faded, replaced by the sterile certainty of your calculations. The chicken you acquired is tied by a short cord to your mat, occasionally making a soft clucking sound that no one, especially not Pinto, seems to notice. You do a final check of your own work, your eyes scanning the columns for any obvious errors. Everything seems correct, but your assessment means nothing. Your work is not truly finished until it has been judged, and as if summoned by that very thought, a shadow falls over you. You look up, and your stomach clenches into a tight knot. It is Pinto. He has left his desk and is walking down the aisle, his destination unmistakably your mat. This is the moment of truth, the part of the day that no amount of routine can ever make comfortable. He arrives and simply stands before you, a silent, imposing figure. He doesn't need to speak. He holds out his right hand, palm up. The gesture is clear. With a hand that feels suddenly clumsy and damp with sweat, you carefully roll up the long sheet of papyrus and place it in his grasp. He doesn't unroll it immediately. First, he walks over to the drying rack and retrieves the section of the book of coming forth by day that you completed this morning. He now holds your entire day's labor in his hands. He returns to your workspace and, with a crisp, rustling sound that seems to boom in the otherwise silent room, he unfurls the tax ledger. The scrutiny begins. His eyes, honed by 40 years of examining texts, move over your work. They do not seem to read in a linear fashion. They absorb it, scanning for imperfections in form, consistency, and accuracy. You watch his face, a mask of stern neutrality, trying to read any sign, any subtle clue. A slight narrowing of the eyes, a tightening of the jaw. Nothing. He is as impassive as a granite statue. The silence stretches, becoming a physical presence in the air. You swear you can hear the tiny, frantic beating of your own heart. Your mind races, replaying the afternoon's work in a panicked loop. That difficult fraction for the temple's share on almost plot. Did you carry the remainder correctly? Was the red ink for the final total perfectly straight? Did a drop of sweat fall from your brow and soften the ink on that one name, making it blur? You remember the famous maxim from the scribal training texts, a piece of mainstream propaganda drilled into every student. Be a scribe, for it saves you from toil and protects you from all manner of work. You almost let out a bitter laugh. The author of that line clearly never had to submit his work to Pinto. While it's true you don't wield a hoe under the blazing sun, this mental toil, this high-stakes pressure, is its own form of exhausting labor. The fear of failure is a heavy mattock, and the weight of your superior's expectation is a yoke across your shoulders. His finger, dry and bony, suddenly stops. It hovers over a spot in the middle of a long column of figures, then taps the papyrus. Once, a single, sharp tap that makes you flinch. He leans down slightly, his gaze unwavering, and then looks at you. You lean forward to see what has offended his sensibilities. It's one of your numbers, a hieratic sign for the number 4. It is not incorrect, but its final, downward stroke is a fraction of a millimeter shorter than the 20 other 4s. In the same column, it is a flaw not of accuracy, but of beauty, of perfection. It is a tiny disruption in the visual rhythm of the page, and to his eye, it stands out like a flaw in a precious gem. As you stare at the offending number, your mind drifts to the darker side of this discipline, a subject historians of a later age will endlessly debate. The training texts are filled with threats of punishment. A boy's ear is on his back. One famous passage reads, "He listens when he is beaten." But scholars will argue, did that brutal schoolroom discipline carry over into the professional world? Was a grown man, a skilled craftsman in a holy temple, really at risk of a physical beating for a shaky line or a mathematical error? Or were the threats merely rhetorical, a way to emphasize the importance of discipline? Looking at Penta's cold, unforgiving expression, you decide that this is a historical debate you have absolutely no desire to settle through personal experience. He says nothing about the tiny flaw. He simply lets his silent disapproval hang in the air, a punishment more potent than a shout. Then, he rolls up the ledger and turns his attention to the sacred text from the morning. He unrolls it. His examination of this document is even more intense. Here, an error is not just a clerical mistake, it is an act of impiety. His eyes trace the graceful lines of the spells, the declaration of innocence, the plea to the heart. The silence returns, heavier than before. You hold your breath. After what feels like an eternity, he finishes. He slowly, carefully, rolls the sacred text back into a perfect cylinder. He looks at it, then he looks at you, and then he does something extraordinary. He gives a single, curt, almost imperceptible nod. He then places the sacred text on your mat, to be stored away properly by you later. He keeps the tax ledger. Correct. The column, he says, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. It's not a request. He turns and walks away, his task complete. You exhale, a long, shaky breath you didn't even realize you were holding. Your entire body feels weak with relief. The judgment is over. The sacred text, the more important work, was not just acceptable, it was approved with a nod. A nod from Pinto is the scribal equivalent of a royal commendation. The flawed tax ledger is a minor issue, easily corrected. You have survived. You have passed. You take out your burnisher, a smooth, flat stone, and begin the delicate process of scraping the flawed number from the surface of the papyrus, your hand shaking slightly from the adrenaline. You will redo the entire column, just to be safe. Your work has been judged, and you have been found worthy. For today, with the corrected tax ledger handed off to an attendant and the precious funerary texts safely stored, a sense of quiet settles over you. The afternoon's great trials, the petitioners and the scrutiny, are over. The low, golden light slanting through the high windows indicates that the end of the workday is approaching. Many of your colleagues are taking this time to quietly clean their palates or simply sit and rest their tired eyes. You could do the same. You could lean your head back against the cool stone wall and drift for a while, letting the weariness of the day finally catch up to you. But then, out of the corner of your eye, you see your rival, Mayhey. He isn't resting. He is bent over a large ostracon, his pen flying across its surface with a speed and fluidity that makes your stomach tighten with professional jealousy. He isn't writing hieratic. He's practicing demotic. Ambition, a far more potent stimulant than any beer, prods you into action. You will not be outworked. You reach into your bag and pull out your own practice materials. Not a clean sheet of expensive papyrus. That would be an unthinkable waste, but a large, smooth, pale limestone ostracon, a flake of stone left over from the temple's workshops, perfect for this purpose. You also retrieve a small, worn roll of papyrus. This is your personal study guide, a cheat sheet you copied long ago from your teacher. On it, in neat columns, are hieratic signs, and, next to them, their equivalents in the bafflingly complex script you must now master. This is the next step in your professional evolution, a mainstream historical fact that you are living every day. The language of your ancestors has 3 distinct forms. First came the majestic hieroglyphs, the sacred carvings you see on temple walls, beautiful and divine, but impractical for daily use. From them evolved hieratic, the cursive script you use for most of your work, the elegant, flowing hand of priests and literary men. But now, there is a third form, a script that has become dominant in the world of law and administration, demotic. If hieroglyphs are formal print and hieratic is cursive, demotic is pure, unadulterated shorthand. It is the language of a busy, bureaucratic, and increasingly fast-paced world. You dip your pen, take a deep breath, and try to form a simple phrase on the ostracon, in the 7th year of the king. In hieratic, you could write this in a few seconds, the symbols flowing from your pen with unconscious grace. In demotic, it's a struggle. Your hand, so confident and sure just moments ago, feels clumsy like a student's. The shapes are radically abbreviated. Groups of hieratic signs that told a story are condensed into a single, intricate ligature, a fusion of strokes and dots that must be perfectly formed to be legible. It's less like writing and more like learning to tie a series of complex knots with a brush tip. After a few minutes of intense concentration, you finish the phrase and lean back to look at it. The result is discouraging. It looks less like writing and more like the frantic tracks of a confused insect. This is the quirky, defining feature of demotic script. It is notoriously difficult to read, even for its own practitioners. It's a script that seems to value speed above all else, including clarity. You have a private little joke that demotic was invented by a scribe who wanted to make sure no one could ever read his private notes, like a physician from the future intentionally making their prescriptions illegible to anyone but a pharmacist. In a way, its difficulty is a form of job security. The pool of men who can read and write this script fluently is much smaller than the pool of basic hieratic scribes. Mastering it means you are more valuable, and that is why you subject yourself to this mental torture every day. While a simple petition from a farmer might still be accepted in hieratic, any serious legal document, a marriage contract, a land sale, a loan agreement, is now drawn up in demotic. All the high-speed, high-stakes correspondence with the central Ptolemaic administration in Alexandria is in demotic or, increasingly, in Greek. To climb the ladder in the scriptorium, to become an overseer like Pintu, or perhaps even to gain a lucrative position in the state bureaucracy, fluency in demotic is no longer optional. It is essential. It is the written language of power and money, and Mehai's fluid, confident strokes across the room are a constant reminder that he is ahead of you in this race. As you struggle to form the sign for silver pieces, your mind briefly touches upon a much larger question, one that historians and cultural critics will one day debate for centuries. What does the rise of this script mean for your culture? Is the adoption of demotic, a script developed by Egyptians for Egyptians, a sign of your native culture's resilience and adaptability under the rule of Greek kings? Is it an efficient, homegrown evolution? Or, as some traditionalist priests quietly mutter, is it a symptom of decay? A lesser script for practical matters, a surrender of the beautiful, sacred forms of the past, while the true language of ultimate power becomes Greek, the tongue of your foreign masters. This is the great scholarly debate of your era, played out in squiggles of ink. You look at the difficult characters on your ostracon. To you, the answer is simpler and more pressing. This script is a tool, and you need it to secure a better life for your family. The politics are a luxury you can't afford. You spend the next hour in this focused, often frustrating state. You are no longer dealing with grand concepts or concrete numbers. You are simply training your hand, building new muscle memory. You copy the standard, repetitive phrases of legal and administrative life. The party of the first part agrees. He has received in full and has no further claim. This document, written in the office of the Temple of Horus. Your hand begins to cramp, and you have to stop periodically to shake it out, flexing your stiff fingers. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it gets a little easier. The connection between your brain's intent and your hand's execution becomes a little smoother. A complex ligature that took you 3 attempts to form now only takes 2. You manage to write a full sentence that looks less like an accident and more like actual writing. It is a small, incremental victory, invisible to anyone. But you are not fluent. You are not even proficient, but you are slightly better than you were when you started an hour ago. And in the quiet, competitive world of the House of Life, that is enough. The deep gold of the sunlight is beginning to fade to orange. The workday is almost done. The shadows in the House of Life are lengthening, and the tired, golden light of the setting sun signals the imminent end of your long day. You've just finished your demotic practice, your hand aching slightly from the unfamiliar contortions. Around you, the low hum of the scriptorium is changing. The scratching of pens is giving way to the soft clatter of palettes being wiped clean and the rustle of scribes packing their bags. A collective, unspoken sigh of relief is hanging in the air. The day is done. You are already thinking of the walk home, of the simple meal your mother will have prepared, of the profound relief of stretching out your aching back on your read. Matt, suddenly, the peaceful, end-of-day atmosphere is shattered. A commotion from the outer courtyards, raised voices, hurried footsteps, reaches the scriptorium. Every scribe looks up from their task. It's highly unusual for such a noise to penetrate this far into the temple's sacred heart. A moment later, a temple guard appears at the doorway, followed by a man whose presence immediately electrifies the room. He is dust-covered and weary, his face streaked with sweat, but he carries himself with an urgent authority. He is not a priest or a temple worker. He wears a short Greek-style tunic, a chiton, beneath a traveler's cloak, and his high leather sandals are caked with the dust of a long and rapid journey. He is a royal messenger. He strides directly to Pinta's desk, ignoring everyone else. He carries a single, tightly rolled papyrus scroll, its ends bound with a cord and sealed with a large lump of clay bearing the insignia of the royal chancellery in Alexandria. This is a quirky but vital piece of your world in action, the Angarion, the royal post. It's a relay system of mounted couriers, a network of state-sponsored urgency that allows the king to send his commands across the vast length of Egypt with astonishing speed. This man's exhaustion is a testament to the system's brutal efficiency. He has likely ridden for days, switching horses at designated posts, with little rest, to deliver this single scroll. Pinta stands to receive him, a rare sign of deference. The messenger gives a short, formal announcement in accented Egyptian, declaring the scroll is a proclamation from the king. Pinta takes the scroll. With a small, sharp knife, he cuts the cord and carefully breaks the clay seal. He unrolls the papyrus. From across the room, you can see that the script is not Egyptian. It is a cascade of elegant, sharp-angled letters. It is Greek, the language of the court, the army, and the highest levels of government. This is official state business of the most serious kind that a low murmur ripples through the scribes. An unexpected royal decree arriving at sunset can only mean one thing: more work, urgent work. You and your colleagues suddenly become intensely interested in the task of cleaning your palettes, avoiding eye contact with Pintu, trying to project an aura of being both diligent and completely, utterly unavailable. Pinta finishes reading, his face unreadable. He looks up, his gaze sweeping across the room like a hawk searching for its prey. A royal decree, he announces, his voice cutting through the silence. It requires immediate translation and public posting. I need 2 copies in Demotic. One for the temple's main gate, one for the town market. This is it, the late-night assignment. Pinta's eyes scan the remaining scribes. They pass over the older men, whose demotic might be slow, and the very young ones, whose hands are not yet steady enough for such a crucial task. His gaze lingers on Mehe, your rival, whose fluency in demotic is well known. Then his eyes find you. Your hieratic is flawless, your diligence proven. Your demotic is improving daily. He needs speed, but he also needs unwavering reliability. Mehe, Pintu commands, you will make the copy for the market. It must be fast. Then he turns to you. You, he says, pointing directly at you, will make the copy for the temple gate. It must be perfect. Your heart sinks. There goes your evening. Any thought of a quiet walk home evaporates. You have been chosen for the honor you least wanted. A senior priest, one of the few in the temple who is truly bilingual, is summoned. He takes the Greek document and begins to translate it aloud, his voice ringing with formal authority. And as he speaks, the rumor you heard during your midday break solidifies into hard, unwelcome fact. It is the new tax on linen. The decree is long and filled with dense legal language, but its message is simple and harsh. Every weaver must now render a higher percentage of their finished cloth to the state. The penalties for evasion are severe, and the tax is effective immediately. You've just been handed the distinct honor of writing out the bad news for your entire community. You're the calligrapher for the eviction notice on your neighbor's income.as the priest dictates, and you begin to write. You are struck by the sheer complexity of the world you inhabit. This is a mainstream historical fact of Ptolemaic Egypt made real on your papyrus sheet. The decree came in Greek. You are transcribing it into Egyptian using demotic script. You know that, in time, a formal, monumental version will be commissioned, carved in the eternal hieroglyphs onto a great stone stela, just like the famous Rosetta Stone. This trilingual reality is not a historical curiosity. It's your daily, operational world, a constant negotiation between the new Greek power and the ancient Egyptian culture. You write as fast as you can, your hand flying across a fresh sheet of papyrus. The demotic practice you were grudgingly doing just an hour ago now feels like a prophetic blessing. The shapes and ligatures flow from your pen with a newfound urgency. This is no longer practice. This is a real-world test, and Pintu is watching.as you write the words detailing the penalties, confiscation of property, fines of silver. You imagine the scene tomorrow. A crowd will gather before the temple gate. A priest will stand and read your words aloud. And this makes you ponder a deep, scholarly question. Historians will one day argue about how the illiterate 99% of the population truly experienced these public decrees. Was it a moment of civic connection, a way of staying informed? Or was it a moment of profound alienation and anxiety, where the incomprehensible and often harsh commands of a distant foreign king were delivered by a scribe who acted as the reluctant and potentially resented face of that power? As you form the symbol for tax, you strongly suspect it's the latter. The sun has long since set. An attendant has brought in and lit several oil lamps, casting a flickering, unsteady light over the scriptorium. Most of your colleagues have gone home. Only you, Mehei, Pintu, and a few others remain, working in the warm, oily air. You are officially on overtime, and the only bonus you're getting is the pressure of ensuring this royal decree is transcribed without a single, solitary error. The final, complex demotic stroke is done. Your hand, which feels less like a part of your body and more like a tool you've been ruthlessly using for hours, finally comes to a rest. You hold the finished decree for a moment, your eyes quickly scanning the dense, dark text under the flickering lamplight. It appears flawless. Your part in this sudden burst of royal urgency is over. You rise on stiff legs and present the papyrus to Pintu. He gives it a swift, professional glance over, his eyes missing nothing. He finds no fault. With a curt, almost silent, "Go," he dismisses you. He turns away, already focused on rolling the original Greek document and preparing it for secure storage. The great machine of the state has what it needs from you. You walk back to your mat, the adrenaline from the rushed assignment draining away, leaving a deep, cavernous exhaustion in its wake. The scriptorium is nearly empty now. Mehei has already finished his copy and is packing his tools, the rivalry between you for now eclipsed by a shared, weary relief. He catches your eye and gives you a short, sharp nod, a silent acknowledgement of the overtime you both just endured. You nod back. The competition can resume tomorrow. For now, you are just two tired men who want to go home. The day's work is complete, but the day is not yet over. Now begins the final ritual, a process as ingrained and important as the preparation you undertook at dawn. It is the careful cleaning and storing of your tools. This is not a chore done in haste. It is a deliberate, methodical act of respect for the instruments that grant you your status and your livelihood. To neglect them would be to neglect your own future. You start with the palette, the heart of your kit. You take your linen rag, dip a corner of it into your water pot, and wring it out. With the damp cloth, you meticulously wipe the two inkwells. The residue of the black carbon ink and the red ochre lifts away, smearing the cloth but leaving the shallow depressions in the wood perfectly clean. You run your finger over them to ensure no gummy paste remains. You then give the entire surface of the palette a gentle wipe, cleaning off the dust and grime of the day until the worn sycamore would gleam softly in the lamplight. Your hand aches as you do this, a deep, throbbing protest from muscles and tendons pushed beyond their limit. It feels like it wants to file a formal petition of its own against your brain. Next, you attend to your pens. The delicate, chewed brush. Tips are still saturated with ink. One by one, you dip them into the water pot, gently swishing them around. You watch as clouds of black and red ink bleed into the clear water, turning it into a murky gray soup. You carefully squeeze the fibers between your thumb and forefinger, pushing out the last of the pigment, then reshape the tips so they will dry perfectly. You lay them in the designated slot in your palette, ensuring they are not bent or crushed. A damaged pen is a useless pen. Having tended to your primary tools, you gather the rest of your kit. This is where a mainstream historical fact about your profession becomes your personal packing list. You place your smooth stone burnisher back in the bag. You add the small, sharp bronze knife you use for cutting fresh reed tips. You pack away your personal seal, a small cylinder of polished jasper with your name and a protective symbol carved into it, essential for witnessing private documents like the one you wrote for the farmers. You gather your practice ostraca, stacking the stone and pottery shards together. Finally, you take your linen bag, which held your bread and beer, and carefully place each item inside. It is the ancient equivalent of packing a briefcase. As you bend and stretch to do this, you become acutely aware of the day's physical cost. Your eyes feel as though they have fine sand ground into them, burning from hours of focusing on minute details and changing light, from the bright sun of the morning to the flickering, inadequate lamplight of the evening. Your neck and shoulders are a single, solid knot of pain. This physical reality of your work is a subject that future scholars, bioarchaeologists, will debate. By studying skeletal remains and artistic depictions, they will argue about the specific occupational hazards of your trade. Were scribes more prone to debilitating arthritis in their hands and spines from their posture? Or was the most common affliction a lifetime of headaches and failing vision from eye strain? You rub the back of your aching neck and blink your gritty eyes, feeling like a walking, breathing answer to their question. It's all of the above. There's a quirky but important ritualistic aspect to what you're doing. By packing your tools away, you are performing a mental transition. You are logging off. While these objects are out, you are the scribe, a functionary of the temple, a servant of the state. The moment the palette is in the bag, that identity is put away for the night. You cease to be a collection of skills and responsibilities and become simply a man, a son, a neighbor. This daily psychological demarcation is essential for surviving the relentless pressure of your position. Finally, everything is packed. You look around the scriptorium. It is silent and vast in the dimness. The rows where your colleagues sat are now just empty mats on a stone floor. A single lamp burns near Penta's desk, where he is still working, his energy seemingly limitless. You remember the chicken, a comical postscript to a serious day. It's been remarkably quiet, perhaps sensing the solemnity of the location. You untie the cord from your mat and tuck the bird under your arm. It shifts, but doesn't struggle. You give a final, respectful nod in Penta's direction. He doesn't look up. You are already forgotten. You turn and walk out of the house of life, your footsteps echoing softly in the empty hall. You pass from the warm, oily air of the scriptorium into the cool, clean air of the temple courtyard. The sky above is a deep indigo, studded with the first, brilliant stars. The moon is rising. Your workday is, at long last, truly over. You step out from the monumental gateway of the temple complex, leaving the silent, imposing world of the gods behind. The night air of the town greets you with a cool, gentle embrace, a welcome shock after the stuffy, lamplit air of the scriptorium. Under the brilliant canopy of a starry sky, the familiar streets of your town are transformed. The frantic, chaotic energy of the morning commute has dissolved. The oppressive heat of the day has lifted, and in its place, a comfortable warmth radiates from the mud-brick walls of the houses. The journey home is not a hurried, jostling affair. Your pace is slow, measured, the walk of a man whose work is done. The streets are quieter now, but far from empty. This is the social hour of the day. Families sit on stools in their open doorways, their silhouettes dark against the soft glow. of the lamps within. The air, which in the morning was a chaotic assault of dust and commerce, is now filled with the savory aromas of 100 evening meals being cooked over charcoal fires, roasting onions, simmering lentils, baking bread. The sounds are softer, too. The shouting of vendors has been replaced by the murmur of conversation, the laughter of children playing a final game in the twilight, and from an unseen courtyard, the lonely, melodic sound of a reed flute. Your route takes you towards the town's central square, where the evening market is still in full swing. As you approach, the quiet of the residential lanes gives way to a growing hum of activity and a warm, flickering orange glow. The market at night is a different creature from its daytime self. It's less about frantic necessity and more about social gathering. The space is illuminated by a constellation of torches stuck in brackets and small, smoky oil lamps placed on the corners of stalls, all of it casting long, dancing shadows and making the familiar square feel magical and mysterious. You need to buy a few things for tomorrow's meal, a task your mother reminded you of before you left at dawn. With the chicken tucked securely under one arm and your scribe's bag slung over the other, you wade into the gentle river of people. The chicken, which has been surprisingly docile, now seems to tense with interest, its beady eyes darting towards a stall piled high with fresh, green lettuce. You hold it a little tighter. The market offers a rich tapestry of goods, a quirky and delicious cross-section of your daily diet. You pass a vendor selling skewers of roasted fish, their skin crisp and salty. Another has baskets overflowing with dried figs and sticky, dark dates. You see a man selling pottery, his simple, functional clay jugs and bowls stacked in a precarious pyramid. There are sacks of lentils and chickpeas, strings of garlic and onions hanging from wooden frames, and clay pots stoppered with wax, filled with fragrant honey or pickled vegetables. You spot the stall you're looking for, run by an old farmer named Katie, his face a roadmap of wrinkles. He has a decent selection of leeks and a few last bunches of herbs. This is where the final public ritual of your day begins, the haggling. It's an art form you've practiced your whole life. "Greetings, Katie," you say, your voice weary but polite. "How much for 3 fine leeks?" He squints at you, then at the leeks, as if assessing their value for the first time. "For you, O noble scribe," he says, his voice raspy, 5 copper pieces." You allow for a moment of respectful silence before you counter. 5 pieces, you say, feigning a mild shock. Katie, their own mother wouldn't recognize them for 5 pieces. "I will give you 2. This is the opening dance." He offered a price that was politely outrageous. You countered with one that was respectfully insulting. He scoffs, picks up a leek, and extols its virtues, its size, its freshness, its potent flavor. You, in turn, point out a nearly invisible brown spot on one of the leaves. This back and forth continues, a conversation that is both a game and a serious negotiation. This entire transaction is a mainstream feature of your Ptolemaic world. While your salary from the temple might be paid in grain and silver, this street level commerce runs on a cash economy of small coins, a system solidified and spread by the Greek rulers. You are not bartering. You are negotiating a price in stamped currency. ASU and Katie continue your friendly battle of wills. You glance around the bustling market, and your eye falls on a woman running a nearby stall selling woven baskets. She is in the middle of a loud, forceful argument with a supplier, her hands on her hips, her voice carrying clear across the square. She is powerful, confident, and clearly in charge of her own business. This scene brings to life a question historians will one day ponder. Looking at official art and records, which mostly depict men leading public and commercial life, they will debate the true economic role of women. Was the marketplace a purely male domain, or were women active, independent participants there? Contributions simply underrepresented in the records kept by men like you? Watching that woman verbally dismantle her supplier, you think she could probably run the entire temple and still have time to haggle for fish before dinner. The debate feels settled. You and Katie finally agree on a price, 3 copper pieces, for the leeks, and you throw in 1 more for a bundle of garlic. The deal is struck. He wraps your purchase in a large leaf, and you drop the coins into his waiting palm. You've also purchased a small flask of castor oil for the household lamps. From another vendor, Your shopping is complete. With your bag now heavier and your chicken still safely under your arm, you turn away from the light and warmth of the market. You walk back into the gathering darkness of the residential alleys. The sounds of the market fade behind you, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the soft whisper of the night breeze. You see the familiar, boxy shape of your house at the end of the lane. A thin tendril of smoke rises from the smoke hole in the roof, and the warm, inviting glow of a lamp seeps from the doorway. You can smell lentils and spices. You are home. The long, long day, with all its stresses and its small victories, is finally at its end. You step through the familiar low doorway of your home, and the last, tightly coiled knot of tension in your shoulders finally releases. The outside world, with its royal decrees and demanding superiors, is left behind. Here, inside these four mudbrick walls, the air is thick with the comforting, savory smell of lentil stew and the warm, steady glow of a single castor oil lamp. Your mother looks up from where she's stirring a pot over a small charcoal brazier, and her tired face breaks into a warm smile. You are no longer the scribe, a cog in the temple's great machine. You are home. Your younger sister, who is only 6, abandons the small clay doll she was playing with and runs to you, wrapping her arms around your legs. Your brother, a few years older, offers a more reserved but equally welcoming nod. Your father is already home, sitting on a low stool in the corner, scraping the day's stone dust from beneath his fingernails with a small knife. He is a stonemason, and his labor is of the body, just as yours is of the mind. He looks up and greets you with a tired but fond grunt. The formal, silent world of the scriptorium feels 1,000 miles away. You're late, your mother says, but there's no accusation in her voice, only a statement of fact. A royal decree came at sunset. You explain, and that is all the explanation needed. Everyone understands the tyranny of an unexpected official command. You present the spoils of your journey. You hand your mother the leeks and garlic, which she accepts with an approving nod, and the small flask of lamp oil, which she immediately uses to top up the lamp, making the room's gentle glow a little brighter. Then, you reveal the chicken. Your sister's eyes go wide. A chicken is a luxury, a rare treat. You hand the bird to your mother. It seems to sense its change in fortune and gives a nervous squawk. She takes it with the practiced, no-nonsense grip of a woman who has handled countless such birds. She checks its weight, feels its breast. It is, you can tell, an acceptable offering. The bird seems blissfully unaware that its short but successful career as a legal payment is about to be followed by an even shorter career as the centerpiece of tomorrow's stew. For a moment, you feel a quiet surge of pride. Your specialized skill, your ability to navigate the world of letters, has brought this unexpected bounty home. Before you can rest, however, there is one final, essential ritual. You go to the large earthenware jug of water in the corner and fill a basin. The water is cool against your skin. You scrub your hands, methodically working away the faint, dark stains of ink from around your fingernails. You splash the water on your face, washing away the dust of the streets and the sweat of your long day. Finally, you sit on the edge of a mat and wash your tired feet, the simple act feeling like a profound blessing. You are washing away the day, purifying yourself of the workplace, and becoming fully present in your home. Dinner is simple, served in worn clay bowls as you all sit on reed mats on the floor. It's the hearty lentil stew you smelled from the street, thick with vegetables and spices, accompanied by the flat, dense barley bread that is the foundation of every meal. There is no fine wine, just a jug of water and a little weak beer. But to you, in your state of bone-deep weariness, it is the most satisfying feast imaginable as you eat. The day's stories are shared. This is how your family reconnects, weaving the separate threads of your days back into a single cloth. Your father speaks of his work at the necropolis, helping to build a new mastaba tomb for a minor official. He complains about the poor quality of a recent shipment of limestone and the laziness of a new apprentice. Then, all eyes turn to you. You give them the edited highlights of your day. You mention the new tax law, which earns a weary shake of the head from your father, who, like all craftsmen, will feel its pinch. But you don't dwell on it. Instead, you tell them the story of Neb and Iset, the farming couple with the grievance against the goat. You embellish it slightly for dramatic effect. mimicking Neb's angry tirade and the wife's constant interruptions. The story is a success. Your father chuckles, and your sister giggles at the image of the greedy, onion-eating goat. You have taken the day's stress and transformed it into family entertainment, looking at them in the warm lamplight. Your father, the artisan, your mother, the master of the household economy. Your siblings still unburdened by the world. You see a perfect, living example of the mainstream Egyptian family. This unit, the household, is the bedrock of civilization, an economic and social world in miniature that has sustained the two lands for millennia. After the meal, your father brings out a familiar object, a Senate board, its 30 squares worn, smooth from generations of play. This is a quirky and beloved pastime, a game that is also a gentle echo of your country's deepest beliefs. The board represents the path of the soul through the duet, the underworld, and the casting sticks you throw determine its fate. You and your father begin to play. It's a light-hearted contest, but the symbolism is always there in the back of your mind. He lands on the house of happiness, a good square, and grins. A few moves later, you land on the house of water, a disastrous throw that sends your piece all the way back to the start. That, you joke, feels like having your work reviewed by Pinto. This easy intimacy, the laughter and gentle teasing, brings a scholarly debate to mind. Historians, with only formal art and impersonal texts to guide them, will one day wonder about the emotional life of ancient Egyptian families. Were relationships stoic, defined only by roles and duties? As your sister cheers whenever your father's piece advances and your mother chides your brother for leaning too close to the board, the academic question feels absurd. Life is here in all its warm, affectionate, and sometimes irritating glory. It has always been so. This is what you work for, not for Pinta's grudging approval, or the king's tax revenue, or even the abstract preservation of knowledge. You work for this. The taste of your mother's stew, the sound of your father's laugh, the weight of the wooden game piece in your hand. These are the simple, profound pleasures that anchor your life, the quiet harbor where you can rest and repair your soul after a long and difficult voyage. Here, in the heart of your family, the anxieties of the day finally seem very far away indeed. The Senate game is finished. Your father, with a victorious smile, puts the worn board and the casting sticks back into their wooden box. The brief, pleasant distraction is over. Your mother extinguishes the main oil lamp, plunging the room into a deep, soft darkness, relieved only by a sliver of pale moonlight filtering through the high window. The day is officially concluded. One by one, your family members settle onto their own reed mats, their quiet murmurs fading into the soft, rhythmic breathing of sleep. You lie down on your own mat, adjusting the cool, smooth curve of the wooden headrest under your neck. The house grows stilled. It is in this profound quiet, suspended between the day that was and the day that will be, that the walls of your mind become a screen on which the day's events replay themselves. The peace you felt during dinner begins to recede, and the anxieties, held at bay by food and family, creep back in from the shadows. You see Pintu's impassive face, his finger tapping the papyrus, a silent judgment that still makes your stomach feel hollow. You feel the ghost of that pressure, the constant, draining need to be perfect, to never make a mistake that could bring shame or punishment. Then, your thoughts drift to Mehe, your rival, and the image of his hand flying across the Ostrakhan, practicing the demotic script you find so clumsy. You feel that familiar, bitter taste of professional jealousy, the fear that he is moving faster than you, that he will seize the opportunities you both crave, leaving you behind in a cloud of dust and ink. You mentally resolve to practice more tomorrow, to work harder, to close the gap. The competition is never over, it just pauses for a few hours of sleep. Your mind turns to the decree you wrote out in the final hours of the day. You can see the dark, flowing demotic characters in your mind's eye, the words that will bring hardship to your neighbors, to the weavers and flax farmers you pass on the street every day. You were just the instrument, the hand that held the pen, but a small, persistent voice whispers that you are complicit, a part of the vast, impersonal machinery of the state that presses down on your own people. You tell yourself it is just a job, that someone had to write it, but the thought leaves a cool residue of unease in your chest. This is the central anxiety of your life, the one that gnaws at you in the quiet moments before sleep. It is the simple, unending weight of responsibility, the need to earn enough, to keep your position, to perhaps even advance, all to ensure there is bread and beer and the occasional chicken for the family sleeping around you. You think of the coins from the farmer, a tiny supplement to your salary. It's never quite enough. There are always more needs, more expenses, more uncertainties. This brings you to a quiet, internal reflection on the nature of this feeling, a question future historians might debate. Did you have a word for this chronic, low-level worry, this feeling of being perpetually overwhelmed? Was it a sickness of the spirit, a punishment from a displeased God, or was it simply the texture of life for a man in your position? You don't have a name for it, but you feel its presence as a physical weight, a tightness in your gut. As you lie there, you feel the solid presence of the wooden headrest, the wares. It is a quirky, practical object designed to keep your head cool and away from floor-dwelling pests. But it is also, in its own way, a magical guardian. Some wealthy men have headrests inscribed with powerful spells to protect them in the vulnerable state of sleep, to ward off the demons of the night. Yours is plain wood, but you take comfort in its solid form, a silent sentinel for your resting mind. You hope for simple dreams tonight. That is a mainstream, deeply felt part of your culture's understanding of the world. Dreams are not just fantasies. They can be powerful portents, messages from the dead or the gods that require careful interpretation by the priests at the temple. You have no desire for such a significant dream. You have had enough significance for one day. You pray for a night of blank, dreamless rest. The cycle of your life stretches out before you in the darkness. In a few short hours, the first gray light will appear. The sounds of your mother grinding wheat will begin. You will rise, chew your natron, eat your bread, and begin the long walk again. There will be new texts to copy, new ledgers to fill, new petitioners with their own small dramas, and the ever-present, watchful eye of Pentu. The overwhelming, underwhelming reality of your life is its sheer, unending repetition. You are not a hero from the grand tales, slaying mythical beasts. You are a scribe. You fight a daily battle against error, poverty, and obscurity, and your only reward is the chance to do it all again tomorrow. The sharp edges of your anxieties begin to blur now, worn down by the immense weight of your exhaustion. The face of Penta dissolves, the intricate shapes of demotic fade, and the worries about money and status become a distant, indistinct hum. Sleep, a force more powerful than any king or god, is finally coming to claim you. Your breathing deepens, matching the rhythm of your sleeping family. The day is finally, truly, letting you go, and so your long day as a scribe dissolves into the quiet stillness of the night. The weight of the ink palette fades from your hands. The ache in your back begins to ease into the support of your own bed, and the endless columns of numbers and letters blur into the soft, meaningless patterns. Behind your closed eyes, the distant sounds of Ptolemaic Egypt, the last dog barking, the soft rustle of the night breeze through the reeds, all of that gives way now to the familiar quiet of your own room. Feel your own breathing slow, deepening with each gentle, easy exhalation. There are no decrees to write, no superiors to please. The work is done. The day is put away. There is only the cool, comfortable darkness and the simple, welcome promise of rest. Let the last thoughts of the day drift away, like dust in the desert wind, leaving nothing behind but peace.